Well, today, Emmanuel Macron was inaugurated as the 8th president of the French Fifth Republic. His election last week was met with relief, I think, in Ukraine, because the other three leading candidates were all politicians who had expressed, one way or another, a pretty clear pro-Russian position. Emmanuel Macron is quite the reverse. To talk about a bit more what we might expect in this part of the world from a Macron presidency, we're joined now by Boris Naiman from the University Paris East. So yes, what's likely to change in terms of French policy towards Ukraine, Russia and Eastern Europe in generally?
First of all, the team of Macron is very aware of the situation and in Ukraine and Russia. That's the first very good point. The second thing is that, as you mentioned, all the time and today on the news, if you've seen, there is many European flags. So they're very pro-European. There is a project that is positive. It's not to be anti, but is in pro-European, reinforcing the capacity of Europe. And that is a subject that's very important for defense. The military issue will be discussed quickly, I think. The latest, and it's very important, I think, also for Ukraine, I think the team is interested by a kind of integration of the region and the special relation with European Union. They want to have a kind of agreement that was discussed with Mediterranean country, but with Ukraine and the country that want to have this agreement. So they're going to propose something very, let's say, constructive in a way for developing cooperation with this region.
What about the so-called Normandy format under which the Minsk agreements for the Donbass are being discussed by France, Ukraine, Germany and Russia? Petro Poroshenko in his press conference today said he expected that format would continue, but does France have any new ideas? Does Emmanuel Macron have any new ideas of how to maybe make some more progress?
I think before September, the election in Germany will be difficult to change the format and to change also proposal in this kind of format. That's sure that first of all, we need to have the election on the parliament in France in less than 1 month, and then the elections in Germany, of course, in September. So for the moment, this format, even if it's not functioning very well, should be kept because there is no other solution proposed on the table before September.
Will new president of France will change the power dynamic in the region? Because obviously Russian current leadership and President Putin responds very well to really charismatic European politicians like Angela Merkel. And will having Macron on her team increase the power of European Union in negotiating through the crises in first and foremost in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, with Crimea, but other important political issues across the region?
Yes, I believe so. But in a way, the question was the same with the war in the Balkans. And here is, how do you construct European Union? I mean, the crisis is not only a crisis on the border, as let's say, Ukraine is, to my point of view, defending a kind of European construction, but also from the European to find a way to construct differently the European Union at the moment. And that's the main issue at the moment. And I think, yes, Macron it is the first president, French president, with some new ideas about what should be the European Union in the future. So in this way, this is changing totally what we can expect. Maybe we expect too much in French about Macron. We'll see. And we should look at really what he will do. We cannot expect something to be done before the election on the parliament, which is mid-June. So after the election, for sure, there will be proposal on the table.
Boris, so a lot of English language coverage of French elections and then the Russian involvement with French elections.
Yeah.
Try to paint kind of one-dimensional picture between Russia dominating European politics or not, Russia intervening into European politics or not. Now we see that obviously maybe the factor was important, but it didn't deliver the victory of a pro-Russian candidate. Do you think that it changed the whole discourse about Russian role? Do you think that it was even overhyped the way it was portrayed, as Russia can decide European elections in one way or another?
No, I think the team, it was very well explained in the New York Times paper, the team of Macron anticipate the attack. Mm-hmm. And so they put on purpose computers with either not important information, but they let this mechanism of stealing the mails and the mailbox be done just on purpose. They deliver information that have no interest. So they're aware of how they proceed. But you have to be aware that the attack during the campaign against Macron on Hromadske were very tough. I mean, I think on his wife, they said he's an homosexual and so on. So the attack was quite tough during the campaign. So we shouldn't underestimate. But just the French people, they don't care about private life. It's private life. So you have your private life, and they consider that this is not a topic that should be discussed during election, and you shouldn't attack somebody unless this private life has something to do with politics directly, like a business, a private business, something, but not if it's a private life and you live your private life as you want.
Boris Neumann from the University of Paris-Est, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, France has been preoccupied not only with presidential elections. I want our producers to feature a cartoon from Charlie Hebdo from last edition about gay pogroms in Chechnya, where they actually ridicule anti-gay policies of Chechen leader Kadyrov in a traditional, very harsh way for the...
Charlie Hebdo's typically controversial style, but this is causing a real storm in Russia. Russian media are apparently talking about it a great deal, and it could have implications for Russian relations with France?
Possibly, but we wanted to keep focus on this story, and Hromadske has been featuring this story for many times on gay pogroms in Chechnya. And another news from last week, a number of activists were detained when they tried to deliver 2 million signatures of appeal to Russian general prosecutor to start investigating gay pogroms in Chechnya. We have a couple of photos of those activists who tried to deliver those signatures but were arrested by police, saying that basically it's illegal protest just delivering those signatures. It all says a lot about that identity issues in the region are part of the conflict, part of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine as well. Ukraine has just finished with Eurovision, which is, great song contest, some say, but also important event for LGBT community all around Europe. In Ukraine, officials try to disposition themselves from Russia, saying, adopting this very creative and progressive motto, celebrating diversity. But they even tried to paint this arc, which I think is a bit of even trolling. The arc was Soviet installed, a symbol of friendship between Russia and Ukraine, and authorities tried to paint it in rainbow colors, but unfortunately, far-right protesters prevented from finishing.
It seems to me the question here is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? A lot of people I've spoken to, when I said what a tragedy that they weren't able to finish it, replied by saying, but what a success that they were able to paint more than half the arch in rainbow colors in a country that has as many problems with homophobia as Ukraine, and where Pride marches there's only been one in the center of Kiev, and it was under massive police protection. I mean, some people are seeing...
Another Pride is coming. And before we go into our guest, I want to show this video, a viral video that our guest actually made of this arc of diversity. He actually, I think it got some kind of 6,000 views on Facebook. And he, Zoryan Kiz is a well-known Ukrainian LGBT activist, and he mocked the arc as some kind of a gay propaganda. Obviously, it was irony and sarcasm, but he just shows how you can protect yourself from turning into gay. And I want to turn to Zoryan, who's in studio with us. Thank you so much for joining us. I totally understand, and as a queer person as well, the whole irony behind this arc. On one point, this is something unimaginable to see such a statement in Ukrainian capital just 3 years ago. At the same point, it's not finished. Authorities are so scared to even say the word LGBT. So some activists say that this whole campaign behind Eurovision and diversity was a bit shallow. Would you agree with that?
Well, Thank you for having me, and I think that the Arch of Diversity, unfinished and already starting to peel off, and and it's just the front side. It's a perfect metaphor of how changes and reforms are going on in Ukraine. It's usually something to cover up the actual thing, the actual situation in Ukraine, and the whole slogan of Eurovision, Celebrate Diversity, is also very illustrative to me, because celebrate or celebration is a short period of time when people are happy, they perform some kind of rituals they might not understand, and then after the celebration you come back to the real life, which is not that happy, which is grey, which still has the issues that you were trying to forget while celebrating.
Well, it was a bit mixed message. If you look into the campaign, Celebrate Diversity, mainly, it was my impression, but a lot of people shared it as well, that celebrating diversity of male, white, body-abled, and cisgender people.
Yeah,
and it's fine
absolutely.
probably to be gay as long as you don't showcast it, which probably
Right.
was the biggest cringing moment of the whole campaign. Isn't it
Yeah.
right? But would you agree that the whole Eurovision helped in any way civil rights battle inside Ukraine by even showcasing the problem, by allowing us to go on air and talk about it, by allowing you to reach out to your allies abroad?
Yeah, well, absolutely. It helped us start the discussion in the society, which we probably wouldn't have been able to start without the slogan and the Eurovision. The Arch of Diversity, as an art project, actually started 2 weeks before the Eurovisions, and the discussion was great. Many people were involved, and at the end of the day, at the end of the discussion, the far-right people, they really looked stupid. They looked silly, because most of the people actually supported the idea of diversity and equality, and they just were laughing at at the far right, who were so scared of a rainbow. They were so scared of probably turning gay, and we even had a joke that if the arch is at some point finished, there is a magic explosion and everyone in Kyiv becomes gay.
A magic portal towards
Yeah,
progress. You just like
absolutely.
go through it and everything is fine on the other side.
Right.
I know that you're also an active participator and you're part of the board for Kyiv Pride. And I saw that you launched, guys, a crowdfunding campaign tied to
Yes.
Eurovision. Was it success for you to reach out to foreign allies, to Eurovision guests, try to kind of involved into very local matter of civil rights battle in Ukraine?
Well, that was what is striking me and what is upsetting me, because our fundraising campaign wasn't as successful as we expected it to be. There were really thousands of gay people in the city, and no one would deny it, but for some reason there was not so much connection between the celebration again, between the happy Eurovision gay crowd and local issues. Our target was to raise $10,000, which I think is not a huge money for thousands of people traveling to Kyiv.
And they're not necessarily poor people.
Absolutely, and even if each of them donated a cost of one drink to the campaign, we would raise much more than the target was. We were only able to raise less than $3,000 within 11 days, which is still not bad.
Maybe, is it an online campaign?
Yes.
So is it still ongoing?
Yes, absolutely. It's ongoing. The Pride March is this year's Pride March is taking place on June 18. So we still have some time. Not much, but we still have.
I know that there is some activists shared concern that because a Pride event is so close, but there was lack of communication between you and the authorities. By the time of this year, last year, by this time, it was already statements from the police that there's going to be protected statements from the some important members of the government or parliament. Why there are no talks at the moment about the security situation?
Well, we've been trying to schedule a meeting with the police for multiple times since January this year. So it's been almost a good 5 months since we are talking to the police and trying to schedule the meeting. I hope the only reason why we haven't met yet was the Eurovision, with enormous preparations and enormous numbers of the police in Kiev. The number of the police was some 10,000 policemen, and then coordination with the National Guard and so on. It's a huge operation. So I hope that was the only reason why we haven't met yet. We are hoping to meet the police early next week, so basically tomorrow, and we do want to discuss some organizational matters with the police, such as the length of the march, because according to most of the participants from the last year, the march was too short. It ended basically almost right after it started, and we are not aiming big. Last year's march was 750 meters. We hope to double the distance this year, and also to more than double the number of participants. It was 2,000 participants last year. We hope for 5,000 participants this year. And
that's very optimistic.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I can only remain optimistic, with the situation in Ukraine.
Well, we'll keep following on the topic, obviously. Good luck with the Pride, but also I think that we want to now close the show with some reports from last night, Eurovision, which is a great event for Ukraine that tries to restore its image.
It was certainly a very jolly event. I was there in the fan zone, and I had a better time than I was expecting.
Really? Well, I decided to sleep, but I heard that a lot of people got satisfied with the organizing. Unfortunately, not all messages were channeled, but at the same time, a lot of people had fun, and it's so important in harsh times for the region as they are. Well, we'll leave you with that report. My name was Maxim Aristavi, was a co-host and was happy to be here.
And I've been Gulliver Cragg. Thank you very much for joining us.
Keep updated through Hromadske Twitter and website and .hromadske.ua, and have a nice week.